Thanks again for coming out. We'll go to item number 1, approve the agenda. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? I've got a few here. We're going to add G5, automated system lift station processor upgrade. And that's the sheet that you have in front of you. So G5, automated system lift station processor upgrade. We'll add J2, East Main Street storm sewer scope. The engineer's report, J2, East Main Street. H1, we need to add a motion to approve the audit. The audit's there, we just have to add the motion to approve it. And I'd like to add E3, just a quick library board update from last night. So I apologize for not having it there for the packet that we just had at the meeting last night. Just want to give you a quick update on a few things going on there. Dan, anything? Good. Oh,
I'm good.
Okay. Teresa, everything's on here? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Number 2, the consent agenda. Everything was in the packet. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. On to B, visitors to the council. Number 1, Cody Lawson. Is Cody here? Okay. Cody is not here, so we'll go ahead and move on to number 2. Jason Boynton, our Smith Safer and Associates 2017 annual audit. The exciting part of the meeting.
It's ready.
Thank you.
Normally get the lights out for this. All right, well, thank you for having me this evening. Pleased to be back here with the council to go over the results of the 2017 audit financial statements for the city of Cass. So in your packet, you should have gotten financial statements, a couple of letters. We're going to talk about those. I'm going to follow along through the PowerPoint that we passed out as well here. So the city contracts with us to perform an audit of their financial statements, okay? And so our job is to come in and take a look at your accounting records, confirm balances, go through transactions, make sure there's support for them, review the financial statements and accounts, and make sure that everything looks appropriate. And based on all the testing that we do and the work that we do, we feel comfortable issuing an opinion on financial statements. We call it an unmodified opinion. A lot of people call that a clean opinion. And that just means that we think that the financial statements as they're presented there are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. I'm not going to go through those. The financial statements, it's a pretty good size book of information, lots of information in there. It goes through all of the activities of the city, departments, funds, and so on for the entire year. So lots of information. If anybody had any specific questions, I'd be happy to take those. But in lieu of that, I'm going to just kind of go through some highlights after we get through this initial summary of the audit, and then certainly ask questions there as well as we go through. But we did sit down and review those financial statements in detail with Nancy, spent a couple hours going through them. There's a lot of information there. There is a section in the front I do point out that we call the MD&A, the Management Discussion and Analysis. It's supposed to be a little more plain English discussion of accounting and what occurred during the year, so I'd recommend taking a look at that if you haven't had a chance to yet. We're required then, in addition to issuing the audit opinion, to do some work on legal compliance, we call it. That covers areas of state statute that the city needs to comply with. And we do have one comment, the same comment we had last year. We have a CD that's not getting collateralized. Not a huge deal. We don't consider it as one CD. It's relatively minor, but we are required to continue to report it. And I think that takes care of itself at some point in time when the CD matures, and then it won't be an issue any longer. And then we also issue a management letter that goes over areas of control that we want to bring to the council's attention. Again, similar comments to last year as well, segregation. We point that out to you. Obviously, we've got a small city, a small accounting staff, difficult to overcome that limitation. Doesn't mean that we don't have controls, we do. We have good procedures in place, and if we saw something, we would certainly recommend that to city management. But a reminder to you as a council, it's really just a reminder that your oversight is an important component to the overall control system at the city. And then we also prepare the financial statements, which we do with all of our cities that we work with. But again, the standards came out and said that your auditors can't be part of your control system, so we don't anticipate either of these really will change, but we continue to report those. Then there's a last letter is auditor's responsibility letter. It goes through what our responsibilities are. We follow generally accepted auditing standards in performing the audit. And then it goes through if there was any significant findings, issues, if we got into a disagreement with management about accounting, which we did not, if we had any difficulties or any concerns or any really complex issues, we would have to communicate that in the letter. And if you had a chance to look through there, you'll see that we did. So overall, clean opinion, one issue that will resolve itself eventually, and these other items we don't anticipate really is going to change. So that's a quick summary of the audit. Any questions or comments? All right, so now I'm going to take an opportunity here then to, rather than go through those financial statements, just to kind of point out some highlights. The numbers come directly out of the financial statements. And then I'm just going to go, and I'm going to go pretty quickly here. I got quite a few slides, and I'm going to try and get this done in about 10 minutes. So start off with taxable tax capacity. So what this is your market value of all your properties in the city times the class rate. Essentially what we can spread the levy over. And the reason I include this kind of as a start is to kind of see what's going on with the city of Casson. Are we a growing city? Are we relatively stagnant? And then that's kind of what we would expect to see based on this chart, what we would expect to see as far as revenues and expenses. So you see we've seen some growth in the last few years. There was an artificial drop here back when the state instituted their market value exclusion program. So they artificially lowered everybody's market values to reduce the impact of some property tax changes and market value credit changes there. All right, so growing city, what we'd expect to see then is growing revenues, which we do here. This is our primary revenue source, property tax levy. You can see we got just shy of $3 million in collections. What we actually collected, our levy was a little bit less than that, so we got in a little bit more than what we levied, which includes some from the previous year, but we get about half our funding for the government through property tax levy. I have this chart tax increment. It's not a significant amount. It's about a little over 100,000, but it's a reminder that we do have some specific TIF districts where eventually these dollars, once their purpose is satisfied, will come back on the general tax levy and be available to be used to offset the entire levy for the city. So you can see we did decertify some back in 2013 and 15, and we collected about $106,000 in 17. But our other primary revenue source is LGA. We get about $1 million in state aid. Okay, that represents only about 17% of our overall revenues. So 50% from property taxes, 17% from the state. And then you can see kind of in comparison, this is the property tax levy here, the LGA. You can see that gap has really grown since 2008. Very similar chart to all the cities we work with. The state has not been adding to LGA on an annual basis, so cities are required to make up for that, just increase costs alone by increasing their levy, and then dealing with additional needs and growth and items within the city. In addition to those two primary revenue sources, there's a couple other revenues we get. We get fees for services, that's in the yellow there, and then we get assessment revenues. So we had an assessment related to the 2017 street project, and that's why that revenue is up in 2017. On the expenditure side, if we're looking at where the dollars go, this is by department. Each one will tell you a little bit here in this top bullets. I'm not going to go through that, but what's included in that department for general government, you can see mayor and council and all of those items are included within this category. We spent a little over $500,000, $512,000. We're up from the previous year a little bit, but we did spend about $50,000 on the recruitment study, and we funded that with the transfer from the liquor fund during the year. So we had a little bit higher costs, one-time costs in 2017. Oops. Some technical problems. All right. Sorry about that. Public safety, police, fire, animal control, so we did see a little bit of an increase again. Costs have been increasing here a little bit each year since 2012. On the fire side, we saw an increase related to supplies, turnout gear, uniforms, and dollars that we spent on some capital items, as well as some training costs, although some of those training costs do get reimbursed through the state. And then the police, we saw a little higher employee costs and some additional repairs and maintenance, so that explains the increase there. Public Works spent just under $700,000 this past year. Main increase there is gonna be, some additional costs of street lighting, utility costs, but primarily it's gonna be seal coating and crack sealing. We spent some more, maintenance dollars on the streets. And you can see we've done that here in 16 and 17, increase the dollars we've been spending on maintenance-related items within Public Works. Culture and Rec, it's gonna be Parks and Rec and with Library as well. We spent about $1 million in total. A little bit of an increase. Part of that was just utility costs. We did some better metering of costs associated with city facilities, primarily the swimming pool, I believe. Library, breaking that down, then we spent about $339,000 in the library. That was an increase. Noted there that with the new facility, we added a part-time position to help additional staffing there. And then just breaking down those costs again by year, so you can see primary driver of costs is going to be public safety and Public Works, and to a lesser extent Culture and Rec and administrative costs. All right, now take a look at reserves. So what do we have on hand at the end of December? Starting with the general fund, your fund balance is in this lighter color. This other bar represents expenditures. We'd like to take a look at fund balance relative to what's going on with the city, especially if we're a growing city, meaning that we probably need to continue to set aside dollars each year to build up fund balance if we have a larger city and a larger expenditure on an annual basis. Well, one of the reasons we have fund balance is for cash flow purposes, right? Our major revenues, property taxes and LGA only come in twice a year, halfway through. We got to fund all our costs associated with operations until we get those dollars in, but we're at about 52%, so even though the levy increased, with the increase in expenditure, we kept our percentage roughly about the same. We got about half a year's expenditures on hand within the general fund. Library fund, their fund balance is at $179. Didn't change much from the year before. If you recall, back in 14, we did transfer money out for construction of the new library building to help fund a portion of that. The EDA has about $100,000, so 2013 we did use some reserves. We had larger balances, and now we built that back up to about, as I said, a little over $100,000 at the end of 17. Our financial assistance fund, this is going to be our revolving loan funds. So the fund balance there is $332,000, but our cash balance is only $106. So we've got a couple $100,000 out in outstanding loans associated with that. But again, dollars can be reused then within the program to provide for additional loans. On the debt side, so these are all the debt issues here within the city. We did issue in 2017 about just shy of $7 million in bonds. That's both the governmental and utility bonds to help fund the street improvement projects for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We got some sewer. This is by year, so you can see we are paying these bonds off on an annual basis. And we're making all our payments timely within the debt, so no concerns on any of the bond funds. Added this chart, new standard came out requiring us to add a portion of Parad's levy or underfunding to our financial statements. One thing I'm going to say here, we've talked about it in the past, is we're required to put this on here. It's informational only, really. The other thing to see is you can see how the number increased substantially and then dropped back down. That was just changing assumptions on how they calculated. Okay, so you change a couple of assumptions, it can have a significant impact. So we get all this information from PER. They report it to us. In addition, we have the fire relief, which is also because of our relationship with them. We're required to report that. They're a little different because what they have on hand exceeds what their calculated liability is. So they have about $26,000 more than their calculated liability. This was as of 16. That was the latest information we had available. Our capital project stabilization fund reserve balances. So you can see we transferred some money out for the library construction. We used those back in 14, and then we've been increasing it up, and then we transferred some out this 2017 to the stormwater fund for stormwater improvements. So we did transfer a small amount of unused excess, only about $11,000 back into the fund. We finish up with the utilities, starting out with the water. Revenues are in the blue, your expenses are here. So revenues are covering expenses, that's what you want. This lighter color represents depreciation. That's a non-cash charge, so we're even covering that. Not all cities set rates in order to cover their depreciation, so we are generating an excess. We did see an increase in revenues, you can see there, as we increased rates about 9% in water and sewer in 17. And we did that in anticipation of the assessment project, because we got some debt service now, so we added some debt associated with that, and we maintained our cash balances, actually increased them a little bit within water at $595,000. Wastewater, again, increase in revenues as we increase rates. We got a big other income that was recognizing the connection fee associated with Manorville connecting to the plant in 2017, so that was about $819,000. So that was added in, and then we did issue debt back in 16 and 17 as we did the expansion on the sewer plant, so you can see that increased, we're at about $6.4 million there. Our cash balances did come down a little bit at $650,000, again, use cash for some capital improvements related to the expansion there. Electric, so if you recall, you'll see when we look at cash balances, our purchase power costs were exceeding our revenues for a number of years here, and then, but 2016, after the contract ended there, our costs came down and our revenues, we had a small increase, I believe, and a little bit of shift in 17, but generated surpluses in 16 and 17 in electric. No debt in the electric fund, but you can see from a cash position, we did bring our fund balance, or our cash balances down to about under $500,000, now we built it back up, we got $1.6 million at the end of 17. Stormwater, we saw a pretty good increase in revenues here in the blue. That was, again, we had another rate increase in storm to help pay for the improvements as part of the new street assessment project. Generated a surplus within stormwater, and then we were able to add then cash balances there. But there's about $500,000 in capital money within there that we haven't spent yet. That's included in the 832. Liquor fund continues. The trends here are pretty consistent within the liquor fund operationally. Revenues are up, costs are up. Your gross margins keeps right in a really tight range. We don't always see that with there aren't as many city-run liquor stores as there used to be, but this one runs pretty efficiently. And they did transfer money in out of the general fund, $14,000 for operations, and then $50,000 for paying for the study that occurred during the year. Their cash balances with operations, they built that up. They have just under $500,000 in cash reserves in the liquor fund. Cemetery revenues are coming in here. You see expenses are higher, so we are using up fund balance or reserves annually, and you can see that. So we're just bringing it down. We have about $200,000 in reserves. So this is obviously a trend where we're using up those dollars, and then eventually we'll have to determine how we're going to deal with the costs associated with providing that activity. All right, so a quick summary. So we increased our general fund reserves to $1,780,000. That's about 52% of fund balance, a healthy fund balance. Making all our payments on the debt. We did do the project, the 2017 street assessment project. Issued the debt to fund that. Combination of GO debt, improvement debt, and utility debt. Our wastewater and water rates are covering operating costs. We did increase the rates in 2017 in anticipation of that street project. We completed the connection with Manorville on the wastewater treatment facility. That change in electric, you can see it's improved the performance. We've got our cash reserves back up. The liquor fund continues to show consistent results. So I go through that pretty quickly, I know, but happy to take any questions or comments. If anybody wants to add anything, happy to say as well.
Nancy, anything you wanna?
No.
Looks like everything's going in the right direction. When all your utilities are going above, all around, better than the rest.
Okay, most of them go in the right direction. That cemetery fund is probably,
Well,
you know,
yeah.
but everything else looks good.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for putting that together.
All right, thank you very much
Appreciate
for having
it.
me. I should thank Teresa and Nancy and their staff. They're enjoyable to work with. They're very helpful, and it makes the audit go really well, and we appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much again. We'll move on to public forum. I don't have anybody that wants to speak tonight, so on to committee reports. Number 1, Arena Committee report.
did have another meeting here today, kinda just going over a couple of things that, Howie brought up. We had, one of the big things is that, he brought up an idea of the USPHL, a junior hockey league, is possibly interested in forming a team over here, bringing that up to the county, possibly doing some sort of an addition. Hopefully the hockey team will be able to fund that in a roundabout way, I guess. And then the youth program would also like to maybe jump on board to add to the addition for some workout facilities, training area and stuff like that. Sounds like the fair board is not going to use the arena for the fair this year. So Howie's trying to come up with ideas of maybe being able to utilize the ice and trying to keep the parking and stuff, so he don't get into any conflict down there again. So, there won't be any rate change on the ice times. As of right now, it is still right in the middle between Rochester and Owatonna. We have, that truck. Starting to look at figuring out a way to fund the change in the cooling system in there from the R-22 to get it up to date. We talked about that, possibly looking into it. Teresa kind of brought up the idea of if we were gonna look into some engineering costs, cause it's gonna have to be done at some point in time, to maybe look at doing the engineering now so we can get an idea of cost in 2020 or whenever it comes about, because in 2020 they quit making R-22, and that's what our system is right now out there, so. We have, and I didn't catch the name, Teresa, maybe you can help me out with that, the May 19th shop local that's gonna go on in there?
Yeah, and I think that's as much of a name as we have for the event, but Lisa Peterson is
Okay.
coordinating the shop local event at the, ice arena for May 19th.
And then I'll put the floor down for that, get that ready for it, so it sounds like a good deal. Otherwise, I think that's all I have, unless Teresa has something else to add.
So as far as an addition, you need another sheet of ice, second sheet of ice is what they'd be looking to do.
No, the fundraising would be for,
Workout facility, that type of thing.
oh, you mean
The the first one you do it.
sorry, USPHL is a junior hockey league, it's a, what, tier 3 team, you know, like the 18, 19, 21-year-olds, somewhere in there. And basically, Howie wants to try to work it to where, if they put this locker room on this addition on the south end, that the hockey league, the team themselves would fund it.
Oh, okay.
And then they would be able, because their practice times that they would use the ice are during the day, when the ice is just, as Howie put it, sitting there with crickets. So possibly be able to trade that ice time for paying them back for funding the locker room. And then the youth program would like to be able, more addition,
Okay.
cause they have charitable gambling now.
Okay.
So they're looking to add, workout facility, place to train, run, warm up, and stuff like that.
Okay, I was, if they were looking at the second sheet of ice to upgrade from an R-22.
Oh, no.
If they did the same, at the same time, we less expensive.
Right, no,
Okay.
not
Right.
yet, I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah, I'm sure someday.
So that's about it from the arena.
Any other questions for Quick? Thank you. Number 2, March Park Board draft notes. Anything to add besides what was in the packet?
No,
Okay.
no.
And then we have A there, the hire of the 2018 Aquatic Center employees. There's a motion required. I'll call for the motion, but I'm gonna abstain from voting because I have a standing member in there, so.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to hire the folks listed in the packet. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. And 4 to 1 abstain. Thank
I
you.
think I made some comments on that last meeting,
Yeah.
on how we'd had more, first time we'd had more applicants than he needed, you know,
Yeah.
it was a good sign.
Yeah, that's good. Usually scrambling to find people at the
Yeah.
last minute. And I added number 3 for the library board update, and just to update a little, if you hear around, you know, there's been some leak issues again at the library with the roof, where those little sleeves go on for the vents out of the bathrooms and that. And Art is working with the architect, the plumbing company, and whoever to get together to get that fixed, and they've got some drawings for some steel to put up there possibly, and come up with a fixed. So if you hear that that's going to Arts, talking with everybody involved to get that taken care of.
So is this still under warranty then?
Nope.
Did we
Well-
ever get our 1-year punch list? I don't remember ever hearing anything back from that.
That did get done. I believe the guy came, he was late, but he came. But apparently this is not covered under the warranty. From my last conversation. So, that's where Art's working with the architect and the plumber, because if you look at the plans, there's a whole big conversation last night, and Art's gonna be calling in the inspector, because the plans that were there weren't followed. So, Art's trying to get all those people together to figure out, you know, here's the plans. The plumber said, yeah, we didn't look at the plans, we just did it. And part of the problem is part of the plan, you have to go talk to Art directly, because part of the plan was you couldn't do one of the things that was in the plan, because it was vented out a wall. You can't do the bathroom vent out the wall, apparently, according to the plumber, so there's a lot of back and forth. But yet it was inspected and said it was okay, and it's not okay. So, he's getting all those parties together to get it fixed. That's why I just wanted to bring to your attention, if you hear that going around, that is the case, so.
Is there some interstate regulations involved in it?
I'm not sure about that, but I know the architect told Art that he would help take care of it.
Okay.
So, that's what I know, and I wanted to share with everybody, so. Any other questions on that? If you want any more specific details, send Art an email or drop him a call. Number 2, let's see, F, old business, number 1, position descriptions. And Teresa-
There was a memo in your
Yep, the memo's in
packet.
there, there's
Yep.
no budget implications here, it was
Right.
more of the consistent
It-
language from description to description.
Exactly.
The actual
Yep.
job description itself didn't change, it was just to make things consistent. So we don't hear any comments on that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the positions as cleaned up.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, thanks Doug, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries unanimously. Number 2, street closure request. This was.
Yeah, right, so the council had asked that the police department and public works kind of, let us know how that would work, and there were no issues. Charlie can deliver barriers, we do have a way to, charge for the barriers, and then they'll just be picked up along the bus.
Okay. And then Kent, you inform the fire department too?
What was that?
Yeah,
You
they
inform
know.
the fire-
Yeah.
They know, okay.
They know.
All right. Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, entertain a motion to approve the street closure request.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks Doug, do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Lonnie, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Number 3, funding for 2017 street project. There is a pretty good memo in the packet, and Nancy, you put this together, thank you very much. Are there any questions for Nancy on this? It was something we had seen coming, it was just a matter of how we were gonna take care of it to stay under that $10 million limit.
Well, that was the original goal, and which I made a note about a couple of things, is that we had more wiggle room than we thought, but we didn't know it at the time. And the purpose of this is to use that, opportunity for some of our, we have one debt dropping off, but instead of there being a debt levy, we've added another transfer out section to fund this, and the goal, if we needed that 600, 700,000, then this is a way to do it without entering in more debt, which means paying interest, which also means paying, the fees that go along with setting up new debt. So this is the purpose, but it does commit those funds for those couple of years to pay back the construction fund when it's done, because it might be, we're gonna need some of those dollars. We're still hoping that Brandon will be able to squeeze a few extra dollars out of there and the fewer possible, but, fact of the matter is, it's probably gonna be at least the 600,000 for sure. So it's just one way to do it without entering into debt and having an official debt levy, and avoid those other costs. So that was the purpose. So, if it's approved, you'll see that in the budget going years forth, and we'll show it as a schedule. Here's what we're gonna, you know, include in this part of the budget for these years for this.
Okay, are there any questions for Nancy? No, makes sense, thank you for putting that together.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the funding for the 2017 street project.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Lonnie, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries unanimously. New business, number 1, ordinance 110, alcoholic beverages.
So this was an opportunity to clean up some language. The ordinance had referred to licenses issued by cities without a municipal liquor store, which did not apply. That didn't happen. And then also to clarify the intent of the municipal liquor store, that it be the exclusive outlet for intoxicating off-sale liquor, including wine and strong beer. So clarifying that intent as well.
Okay. Makes sense, because we had an ordinance that didn't apply to us because we do have a municipal liquor store, so.
Right.
Okay, any questions for Teresa on that as you read through that?
No?
I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance 110 as amended.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Lonnie, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries unanimously. And then we need to approve an abbreviated publication of that ordinance, so I'll entertain a motion to approve an abbreviated publication of ordinance 110 as amended.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Clay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passed unanimously. On to ordinance 154, height limitations.
So this came about because we didn't want to just keep having to issue variances for sports press boxes, and we had even talked about this when we did issue the variance for the previous one, that we would take this to planning commission, and here it is.
Okay. Entertain a motion to approve ordinance 154, adding sports press boxes more than one story.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Doug, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Dan, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. And then we need to, I'll entertain a motion to approve an abbreviated publication of ordinance 154, height limitations.
I'll make that motion.
Dan, do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Cody, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, passes unanimously. On number 5, we added this, the automated system lift station processor upgrade. There is a memo on in front of you with 2 options, and is,
Yeah, I can talk about it a little bit.
that'd be great.
Yeah, so the alarm is not working at the main lift station. It requires that it be checked on a regular basis. So a solution would be to fix the part that is the problem. The difficulty is that within a year, the entire system could become obsolete, so we will have replaced a part on a system that we won't be able to do any other maintenance on once we spend the money. So, so the second option is to upgrade that piece of equipment completely, and instead of spending $7,000 now and potentially having a system we can't utilize, to go ahead and spend the $29,000 and purchase a new system with a warranty and the ability to maintain it going forward.
Okay. So this is the alarm system at the wastewater treatment plant?
At the main lift station.
On the main lift station.
Where would the money come
From the sewer fund.
from?
Are we over the dollar amount if we go second option for getting more than one quote?
No.
What's that break, 50?
I think it may be 100 now, actually.
They raised it.
Yeah,
in the last-
I think it
Yeah.
may be 100 actually.
It's more than 100 now, yeah.
Oh, okay.
else thought about getting a second quote on it, if we're changing out the control altogether?
This was provided to me by, Dave, and Charlie is aware of the situation, so. Do you have some information?
And I can maybe speak to that a little bit. Automatic Systems there who provided you the quote, they are what I'd call the current firm that is working on your, we call them a system integrator. They ultimately integrate in the wastewater treatment plant, the water tower, and all the different talking that those systems provide us. So that's my assumption why Dave and Charlie went to Automatic Systems to get a quote. So sometimes necessarily going out for different options may not be in the best interest of the city. Now with that said, I haven't reviewed what they came up with. But secondly, if that wastewater treatment plant, or excuse me, that lift station was to go down, we'd be dumping raw sewage into the Zumba River. So I don't think this is something that we wanna may mess around with in that sense, to mind our kind of P's and Q's, because if you remember, we did have another lift station, a different lift station fail, and had a notice of violation from the MPCA, and we did make a pretty sizable investment there on that lift station. So it's critical. Automatic Systems is familiar with the system, and I would say recommend generally, as a general statement, not necessarily skimp on some of these controlling here. Would be my general comment with, again, not reviewing what they provide to the city, so.
So the liability may be well over the 30,000 if
Yes.
something went wrong.
It'd be pretty simple to say, yes.
Yeah. I'm good with option 2.
What is their time frame to be able to get to this? Teresa?
Oh, they didn't talk to me about timeframe. There's a place for me to sign. They'll start moving as soon as it's approved.
Aren't these systems built as ordered? I mean, they're not sitting on a shelf.
Right.
Right, and those specifications are spelled out here, and these folks are familiar with the, panel, because Dave was explaining, Dave was explaining to me more than I can picture in my mind, but, the reason that it's priced the way it is because they don't want it put back maybe in exactly the spot it is either, so.
Right.
So they worked through that.
I wish that Dave could have been here tonight, it would have been a lot easier, if he could explain it more to us.
I think from the stuff I see here though, I don't think we wanna go the cheap version.
No,
and then
No.
cause then we're gonna be spending money now and then
Well,
it's wasted.
If something else goes on that same one, you'd have half the money in it and you'd still have the same problem, I
Yeah.
mean.
So, so is this quote a complete, they're taking care of everything? Somebody doesn't have to line up an electrician or a contractor or move, it's.
Includes labor and materials as required.
Well, that could be to install their stuff, but if they're moving it, just wanna make sure that this is a complete system, that we're not also then coming back here, 'cause we have $5,000 in electric fees or whatever, or something.
Said power supplies and input, output modules.
Relocate.
If you'd like, you can provide me some direction to circle back with Dave and Automatic System, make sure we're getting the complete system, and if not, report back to the council accordingly.
Can we approve it as per must be complete?
Well, I mean, I think, like what Brandon just said, basically, so, I mean, I'm good with it, I just don't wanna come back and say we gotta approve now another $5,000 because we had
Right.
an electrician to go in there and re-pipe everything to it.
The only issue I have is the longer you wait, the longer it's gonna take to get it.
Right, no, I'm with you,
Yep.
of getting it rolling, so.
Yeah, we're more happy to circle back with Dave and Charlie and make sure we're getting what we all need as a full system, so. And a lot of times they do include any electrical work, so they've done that in other communities that we work for, so.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
I think it's a good deal.
Okay, so we have consensus there. We'll direct Brandon to follow up with Dave and proceed, and then circle back to us if there's any additional costs for the $29,000.
But it looks like we gotta have a motion on it.
Just check and see if there's more discussion. Entertain a motion to approve Brandon circling with Dave to make sure the 29,158 is all inclusive and to proceed with the project.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Coy. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Doug. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Thanks, Brandon, appreciate it.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Mayor's report.
We added a motion to approve.
I see that.
Yeah.
We did get the audit, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the audit as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Thanks, Coy. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Administrators report.
So the first thing is, next Monday at 6 p.m., Casson Public Library is a joint meeting of the, Planning and Zoning Commission, City Council and the Comp Plan Working Group to look at the, updated draft of the comprehensive plan. Jim Elmquist with the county has also, expressed interest in being at that meeting, and that meeting is open to the public. You just got some updates to the, alcoholic beverage ordinance. We'll also be, bringing some updates to the utility ordinance your way. One thing is that our ordinance does make the property owner severably liable for any utility bills, but we're not currently providing the owner with a monthly statement. We'll let them know if their, renter gets behind. But, yeah, I think it would be helpful if they were their utility customer and we sent their renter a bill as a courtesy, to them, and then depending on the terms of their lease agreement, they can work that out with their renters. So we'll be making a few adjustments to who's the primary customer, how we provide billing so that so that the owner knows that they're gonna be liable for that bill if it doesn't get paid. And then, also change some timelines, because right now our timeline in the ordinance doesn't really match our current billing cycle, so we will be cleaning up some stuff and bringing the utility ordinances back to you as well.
Thank you.
And the next CMLM meeting is the end of this month in Leroy.
Mhm.
And, I already have Dan attending, but if anybody else would like to go, please let me know, and I'll make sure that I get you registered.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, on to J, engineers report number 1, sidewalks.
All right, well, thank you, Mayor and Council. In your council packet is an email regarding sidewalks. As we went into what we're doing currently with the ADA transition plan, looking at the compliancy of sidewalks, I noticed that in a lot of the new subdivisions, the current sidewalk's only 4 foot wide. So that ultimately is, for all intents and purposes, non-compliant when it comes to the ADA Act, Americans with Disability Act. So what I'm ultimately recommending tonight is the city council change their, what is referenced in the ordinance, to current acceptable standards to 5 foot wide, and ultimately require all new home construction to construct a 5 foot wide sidewalk in all homes moving forward, to ultimately meet the ADA Requirement Act. And any street project that we would do, we would be building 5 foot wide sidewalks in, so this is just in the new subdivisions. Because ultimately, when we do this ADA transition plan, we're gonna have to show them as non-compliant. While they're non-compliant, they may be in good shape, we may not wanna replace them right away, but at the end of the day, they are gonna be non-compliant. So I think moving forward, that's the recommendation, I think, to the city.
Okay, that makes sense.
Well, I don't know.
That's the rule, so then we'll just need to have that come back at the next meeting too.
I think so the ordinance currently states.
Current acceptable standards is
current
referenced in the ordinance, so.
Acceptable standards, so we are clarifying.
Can we just change it to 5 feet without changing the order?
No,
Okay.
but you can clarify that the current acceptable standard is 5 feet by a motion of the council. We will be bringing all of the zoning ordinance, to the council for a public hearing once we complete a review and make some zoning changes based on the recommendations of the comp plan. And we can include it at that time, but right now, we can just have a motion that defines our current acceptable standard as 5 feet, and then be able to apply it.
Makes sense.
I'd hate to admit it, but we've had conversations here where people don't use sidewalks, two people can't walk alongside each other, it makes sense, you know, to have it 5 foot.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to clarify that our current acceptable standard is 5 feet. Any ordinance?
I'll make that motion.
Stand with a second.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Doug. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Thanks, Brandon.
All right, and the second item is the East Main Street Storm Sewer Project and scope, and, that's not actually in your council packet, it's a handout I handed out today before the meeting. So with that said, we, initially looked at the storm sewer project, and the reason why we're doing it is the flooding, that's been probably too prevalent or too frequent, at the police station, at the images, in the old Public Works building, and we actually, I think have gone up and over the railroad, there, and actually shut down Highway 57. So that's why we looked at this project. It's actually been some years ago since we put together the feasibility report, but the initial project alignment was to extend a new storm sewer, south, paralleling the old system down along by the post office, I think it's Hinterman Concrete there, and discharge that to the creek. So about a year ago, I came back to the council and said, there's some issues there. We don't necessarily have right of way to install that line. We're gonna have to tunnel underneath the railroad, which we kinda knew going in, but that can be a little bit of a risk from the city. We have some retaining walls along that alignment that ultimately get pretty expensive, and there are some contaminated soils that we found, in the area based on some new information received. So, what the recommendation at that time was, let's go east with this and not cross the railroad and basically take it straight east and, a longer distance, but maybe an easier dig, kind of underneath the power lines going to the east and within the railroad right away and dump it out to the creek there. Had some other added benefits of picking up another problematic storm sewer that's caused some erosion, in some backyards, and it's been kind of a thorn in, Public Works Director's side. So we pick up that storm sewer also, so that was some other benefits. So I'm here tonight to talk about project budget and the direction and scope to make sure kind of we're all on board here. The initial project budget was for about $550,000, that was to go, directly to the south. We never really revised that number. I thought maybe we'd get back to that number. But as we got into it even more here up on Main Street, and we can see in the figure here is, everything basically to the west of 57 has already been updated, with a recent-ish project of Main Street reconstruction to a 10-inch water main and a 15-inch sanitary sewer. That ultimately continues to flow to the east into our new project area here. So when we have the roadway dug up here to install this storm sewer, the recommendation from staff is to include the upsizing and reconstruction of the sanitary sewer from a 12-inch to a 15-inch, because it is downstream of that 15-inch, and then ultimately upgrade the water main to a 10-inch water main. Reason for the water main upgrade, actually everything kind of the south and east of here along 34 into Marty subdivision over here, is actually ultimately served from this single line here. It's actually kind of a dead-end line, so it's another goal that we'll have is to create a loop here as we extend Commerce Drive and kind of loop things back the other way. But that's a little bit of a concern from a public works standpoint and a water distribution standpoint. So upgrading that water main is pretty important. There's already been some breaks in that water main also, and it's been kind of nickel and diming us also. So with that said, ultimately we do more work, it costs more money, but the staff recommendation is to include that. So the proposed funding there is what we're proposing from the staff level to the council. So the $550 from the storm sewer fund probably stays the same. Water and sewer picks up their sewer and water replacement. And then I have in there $50,000 coming out of the budgeted street maintenance item. That's what the staff assumed that the council would like to proceed with, pulling that out of that $200,000 in street maintenance. Reason why is ultimately we're replacing that street, so it could be kind of viewed that, we're not gonna have to allocate any maintenance on that street section there. So ultimately looking for some council direction to, a motion to provide direction on the scope and the funding that's proposed, or give us marching orders to go a different direction if that's what you'd like to see. And then once we finalize plans and the final permitting from the railroad, the plans go back before the council for final approval, but I'm just wanna make sure council's okay moving forward at this point. We have final approval, then we'll start into getting a contractor on board to construct this. So again, I think the big discussion will be that $50,000, if we wanna take that out of the $212,000, I think is budgeted for street maintenance, or do we wanna just kinda see how bids come in, and then, that $50,000 maybe could be found somewhere else, but I'm gonna need some direction too on what the scope of the street maintenance projects, we're pulling that together also.
Well, the project's long overdue. We got
Yeah.
businesses in that area that deal with water on a regular basis, we need to take care of.
It's a great project.
We need to take care of it for them. It's
I mean, you're gonna have the street tore up, now's the time to do sewer and water.
Yeah,
Hey, that sewer is pathetic through there, I know.
and it's undersized, so might as well.
Are we sitting in a spot with you haven't let the stuff for street maintenance this year yet?
I have not, no, but I'm gonna be probably about the same
You got
time.
something kinda slid off to the side where you could lose 50 grand of that?
I think so, I think, the budget item here for the City Hall parking lot, I'm kinda lumping into that project also, 'cause it's also paving operations that fall under street maintenance. I'm hoping that comes in, I think I can do some things a little bit different there and get the same bang for the buck there, actually not milling out as much as what was planned or budgeted for. So I think that'll save some money, and then just pulling back kinda maybe some chip sealing, and the amount of milling and overlaying patching, that we're looking at doing. We currently have a pretty significant, amount of actually milling and overlaying, planned, so that's some of the things that we can shuffle around a little bit. Obviously, the money could be spent on street maintenance, don't get me wrong, but,
I hate that we've taken some small steps in that direction as of now. I hate to step back a little bit, but this particular project is pretty important. People have been dealing with it for a long time, so.
With that said too, you know, we've crack filled every street in town other than two that we'll get on. Obviously, cracks reform, don't get me wrong, but we've gotten to that far, which is pretty significant. And we've provided a fair amount of chip sealing, and 202,000 if you chip seal, it goes a long ways really in the town of this size. We started getting into milling and overlaying, obviously that's more costly and intense construction, so we can burn up 200,000 pretty quickly, but, I think you're going in the right direction. Again, it's just more of a 50,000, do we wanna find it somewhere else, or do we wanna just pull back a little bit on the street maintenance on that 50,000?
Well, we've both gotta go on with this project. We've been looking at it for quite
I think
some
this
time
is-
now, and
Like you said, part of this is street, so it
Does
fits
make
with that,
sense.
and I think this takes a priority over other
Can I ask
area
a
projects
question?
that are important.
Your projects that have been letting this spring, they've been coming in under what you
Actually have been
proposed?
pretty good, so.
Yep.
Not seeing as many bids, but they've been coming in under, so.
I think we gotta do it.
Yeah.
when we look at the scope of this project, by you going east, how did we come in? We saved some money there anyway, didn't we?
I think, you know, that goes back to the original, what we call a feasibility report, we get the pen and paper out and give a quick estimate, here you go. You know, we're at 550, once I got into that, we would've blown that out of the budget. I was real leery of going south once I got into it more and started looking at things.
That thing is such a mess.
And
That's been a mess.
then what we're gonna clean up additionally downstream, where
Right,
other
yeah.
water comes
Right
out the
where it
road.
comes
in
off
the-
of
in the
Third,
back,
is it?
yeah.
Fourth?
Yeah, probably Fourth
Third or
Avenue.
Fourth, yeah.
That thing's always been a pain. When we
Yeah.
run that tile down through there, that was a mess.
Yeah.
This is a
You know,
well-needed project,
And with mowing too, homeowners have struggled to really
Yeah.
mow that, Public Works tried to mow and
Yeah.
it just doesn't work, so this will hook into that storm sewer line and keep it in a
structures
pipe.
in there and everything else,
Yep.
and
Okay, I would make a motion then to proceed with let Brennan go with the scope of the project, use 50,000 from the street maintenance fund, and let the business see where that goes and report back with
Yep.
details.
Okay.
So I would make that motion, Chair.
I'll second it.
Second, Doug. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, carries. Thank you very much.
That was
Look
it.
forward to the update.
Thanks.
Okay, personnel, key number one, 2 seasonal positions.
Yes, there are 2 seasonal positions that are budgeted for. One is in the parks, and last year we utilized manpower, and Harrison Humboldt worked for us in that, position. And then, we also have a seasonal position for water wastewater to do, some of their mowing and grounds work at, lift stations, the plant, their wells. We did not hire for that last year. This year with the additional facility responsibilities, with needing to hire, and identify, a new operator, the request is that we go ahead and hire that, seasonal position as well. That position could also be hired through manpower. So first, I'm looking for the approval to go ahead and hire the 2 seasonal positions. And then associated with that is that we would have the opportunity to hire Harrison ourselves and have him be a city employee. He is a student. He wouldn't open the city up to unemployment responsibilities, after the summer. So we would need to pay Manpower for identifying him, and bringing him to our attention. I think I do have that here. There is a cost to that. I think it might be about $540 that we would pay to Manpower, and then we would pay Harrison our hourly wage, as opposed to Manpower. I think we pay them an additional 40% more than our hourly wage. So that is a total aside. Was I as clear as mud?
No, that makes sense.
Okay, all right. Okay, those are the two positions.
Okay, any questions?
Well, yeah, I had questions about this at budget time, on that money there. I mean, we put that extra guy on last year. We, also at that time, that was before we hired someone for 25 hours a week, year-round. And we also had 2 people missing. A full-time mower from the ice arena, and one from the park department was out with a shoulder injury. And that was the reason that person, now we've got everyone back working, and we've got the additional person 25 hours a week. And maybe if we wanted to use that Harrison for the mowing, the other out mowing that they're talking that they needed in that spot, the extra out there, I might be a little bit encouraged to look at that, because we have some of that budget. But as you can see, we've got other things that are popping up here where we could use some money. Just because it's budgeted, it doesn't mean we have to spend them. I'm just saying that last year when we got that person from the job.
Yep, no, we're missing 2 people.
We were replacing 2 people, right. and since that, you know, at that same time, then we hired a guy 25 hours a week, and I think he worked up to 25 hours a week. I think he worked 25 hours every week this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Pretty close.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That actually makes sense to me too. I mean, we got our full-time people all back. I can see Harrison coming back. We do have more to do, and they're short at the wastewater plant for now until we get somebody hired, but I would say we can do with the same mowers that we had last year.
Well,
'cause we got our
you know,
people back. We
right.
got more people back.
If you have that extra mower, he doesn't have to just do that stuff either. He can fill in anywhere. Already knows the road. Now, I'm taking, this position isn't gonna be a union position on us all of a sudden.
This is
This is a part-time
part-time
position?
seasonal position.
Okay.
We're only using this person
Okay, why
for
is-
so many months.
I didn't know the other one was gonna lean that way either.
Any other questions for Teresa or comments?
No?
No, I agree with you guys. I mean, I think we got our full-time guys back. I think we can do with what we have, and I guess I don't really see anything in front of me where we're lacking either. I don't see any cause to hire myself.
Okay. Hire both or one, you're saying?
Just what Doug said.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, no, I'm just, that was
Go ahead,
Harrison.
go ahead, the Harrison gentleman.
But I want it said that utilize them everywhere, you know what I
Right.
mean? We don't have to hire these people for little areas. Use them throughout, wherever you can be used.
Okay. I entertain a motion, or I'll make the motion to approve hiring Harrison Huppelman as a part-time seasonal employee for the Public Works Director to use as he sees fit wherever you'd like to use it.
Is that through Manpower, or is
Nope.
that through the city?
I would say through the city as an
Because we wanna
employee.
clarify that when
Yep.
you're doing it.
Yep, as an employee to the city.
That through Manpower, that's $20 an hour, you know, you aren't
Right.
getting a seasonal, that's a pretty good wage.
Yep. There's a a motion on the floor to approve item one. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I'm gonna abstain from that, I mean, he's a second cousin, his family, I just wanna make sure there's no.
Okay. All right, so 4, and then 1 abstaining, being the same person. Okay, number 2, police chief recommendation for full-time officer. That's in your packet, letter from the police chief. Are there any questions for the police chief? Thank you for coming tonight, by the way. And I understand at our last meeting, just like I said, that, you were here, and I was unaware at the time that it was your 30-year anniversary.
Couple of years, yeah.
Couple.
Couple years ago.
I just wanted to congratulate you on 30 years with the
thank
city
you.
and police officers. Any questions for the police chief on the recommendation for the hire?
Well, I just wanted to say, this is just filling a position, both of these are.
Yep.
They're not adding,
There's
nothing,
no
they're
add.
filling that's the way I read it, that's,
Yep.
yep,
That's why I wrote it, yeah.
Okay, no questions?
They start off at kind of, where's the scale that they're starting on?
Grade 10, step 2.
To same where he's at right now.
That's what current level he's at is.
Okay.
Salary amount, I don't know, but.
Oh, you're on board on that, okay.
Okay, sorry.
Got it. Okay, entertain a motion to approve the hiring of the full-time officer as recommended by the police chief.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Aye, Dan. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Second letter from the police chief to then backfill the part-time position that just went to full-time, and then to replace all there, so we have that recommendation for the, part-time officer.
I'll make that motion.
What's, one question, what is the pay scale on that one for the part-time?
Beginning.
Yes.
Step, or, what is it?
It's
10,
grade
number
10,
1.
step 1,
Step one.
they're in the same grade,
Yeah.
either they're part-time or full-time, they're in the same grade.
They only progress through the steps after they work a certain amount of hours, is how they progress.
Okay, I have a first, motion by Doug and a second by Lonnie. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, motion passes. Thanks again, chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna go to L, attorney's report. We have 2 closed sessions. So these all can be combined into one, Attorney Leth, or do we have to do them separately? Okay.
Well, we can just have one that we're closing the meeting, but one needs to be recorded, the other one does not.
Okay, so the first one needs to be recorded.
Correct.
And the first part about real estate offers and counteroffers will be recorded, and the second part about attorney-client privilege will not be recorded. We'll close the meeting and reopen the meeting when we're done. So you can continue.